Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is Jordan Debano, and if you are looking for tips, strategies, and principles to help you reach your next level of success in your life, business, or career, you have landed in the right place. Give this channel a subscribe, a like, and enjoy this video. We are speaking about paths to power in this video. So before we begin, I thought it'd be a timely video considering what I've been watching in the sports world at the moment. I'm not sure if you guys are NBA fans, but a very popular interview that's gone viral with LeBron James has just come out on the Pat McAfee show. He's a former NFL player, kind of blown up as a bit of a media personality, but he interviewed LeBron James, and they were just kind of recapping his career, and it was really interesting listening to LeBron because he talks about at different points in his career he's had to make some pretty big decisions. And it got me thinking about this dynamic that we can often experience when we've got these big decisions where it's like we've got the internal knowing of what we feel or just know. It might not just be a feeling, it could just be a knowing, and you just know that it's time to do something. So you've got that data on how to make your decision, but then you've got the whole outside noise going on. And we spoke about this on the episode on intuition, but I wanted to bring it back to um, these big decisions that we're faced with because if we let the outside narrative, let's say LeBron, like if he let the outside narrative influence his decision on whether he was going to stay in Cleveland for the rest of his career and try and take an average team at best to a championship. And he had almost gotten there. He took them to the finals, but it didn't quite work out. Right. He's just going to slog it out there because it was the right thing to do. That's the outside narrative. Or he was going to follow his knowing, which was like, man, I've got to go somewhere else where I can actually stand a better chance at getting a ring. And it's wild to think, who would have LeBron James become had he not followed that internal narrative and followed the external narrative and just gone for it, and I mean, it still could have worked out for him, but I mean, again, we just don't know. You could even say the same about while we're on basketball, Michael Jordan. Like, what would have happened had Michael stayed, or not? I shouldn't say stayed, but got swept up in the stardom and the buzz that was around him. Like, can you imagine that? Michael being so self-centered, not learning how to lead, not working, training hard on his body to get more physical, to put up with the Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics back then. They were the big teams. Can you think about Michael's success then? I mean, he probably, again, we don't know, but it would have been a different Michael Jordan. Who knows how well Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr, all these other guys, who knows what would have happened to those guys and whether the Bulls would have been able to win 6 rings. We don't know. And so I wanted to bring that into today's video because, I think in life, whenever we have these big decisions, we have that dynamic playing out. It's like, this is what we know deep down inside, what our next steps are. But then we've got everything out on the outside, all the noise, the news, people's narratives about how the world works, other people's thoughts on who we are and what we're capable of. And then we've got our own stories about how they see us. There's so many narratives. And this is actually, I'm writing a book on this at the moment, how, if we're not aware of the power narratives, these narratives that have power essentially having a direct influence over the path that we take in life, we are risking um, limiting how much we can achieve. And I just look at these two particular people. Number one, because I'm a big basketball fan, but number two, because they are athletes, they are icons in their own right in their sport, and in modern day culture. that, I believe went with what was going on the inside. Yes, there were things on the outside they would have paid attention to, but I believe Michael and LeBron would have ultimately always come back to what they knew was right for them. And so I want to pose the question to you, if you're at that point where you're at kind of at like a checkpoint in your life where you've got a big decision to make, it's like the business has stagnated. Which way are we going to take? Right? And there's a specific decision you need to make. Maybe you've made it, maybe you haven't made it. It's time for you to have a chat with your partner about kids, or maybe a kid's on the way, and you've got to make some adjustments to your lifestyle because of these moving blocks. Again, you've got a decision to make whether you're going to back down at work, maybe whether you're going to go harder at work. I don't know what decision you've got, but I'm sure there's a dynamic where there's heaps of narratives on the outside and also narratives on the inside. Again, when I'm talking about like the knowing, I'm not talking about narratives here because the narratives we have are quite often directed as like a compensating strategy to deal with what's going on the outside, right? So we can have all these narratives and then we can have the knowing. And I want to encourage you, as scary and as unsure, uncertain that you might be around this decision, to just take a moment to come back to your knowing. As we've spoken about in the last couple of videos, the knowing is subtle. It's not palpable. It's not intense. Okay. The knowing is subtle, and the subtlety of the knowing never lets you down. It just never does. I'll give you a few examples on checkpoints I've been at. I've spoken about a lot of them. I'm trying to think of one that I haven't really spoken about. Uh, okay. Which one am I going to share? I've been at a lot of different checkpoints where I've had narratives. Okay, I'll bring up this one. So I had this is quite a personal one, but I think I may have spoken about this on other videos. But I was in I was in a long distance relationship during COVID and what have you. You couldn't really call it a committed relationship. It was just something new. I wouldn't even go to the extent to say it was a quote unquote relationship. I was in a thing. I was in a situation during COVID. It's complicated. That was the term. Anyway, long story short, I had the opportunity to go to Bali to make it work with this particular woman, and and to really just find out what was between us and what have you. Now, there were a lot of narratives out there at the time. It's like it's unsafe to travel. You can't travel. My family thought I'd lost my fucking marbles, thinking that I'm going to go over there for this woman that I hadn't seen in a long time. Had a bit of history with her back in Melbourne, and not only because of that, but you know, COVID was worse in Bali, considerably worse than it was in Australia. And so there was all of that was going on. There was also the question, how am I going to support myself? Because I was a full-time musician and the only money that was really coming in was stuff from streaming. And I probably had about 500 listeners max a month. Now, for those of you that aren't up to date with streaming, which I'm sure a lot of you are, you've probably heard it's a well documented thing that musicians are paid piss all from streaming. So you need to have like Taylor Swift streaming numbers to make any kind of money. So I was making like sweet fuck all off streaming. So I was relying on my savings. So it's like, Jordan, you got to go to fucking Bali. You got to move countries. Again, Bali's not expensive, but still, what are you going to do over there? It's not like you can get a job anywhere. It's COVID. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to be spending more money. So anyway, there was all of those narratives, and it was like, fuck it. What's my knowing? And my knowing was like, go right now. It didn't work with this woman, and I was very upset about it. But the knowing was correct in hindsight. After going through that whole journey, traveling overseas, and everything that came from that trip. Oh my God, it was so like on point. It was true, and yeah, there were some challenges, of course, when I got there and it didn't work out, and then There was a bunch of other things like getting used to living in Bali, the culture there around COVID, and what you could do, what you couldn't do compared to Australia. There was some challenges, but man, like look in hindsight, that was like truly a massive power move for my own life, and everything that I do now, like had that not had happened, I wouldn't be doing what I do now. So you want to have that in mind, and I'm sure I am sure, like 1,000% sure, that if you were to look back at certain decisions that you made, you could probably think to yourself, well, had I not done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Like your life would have probably turned out very different. I mean, even take a moment to just acknowledge that, if it was like to stay in a job or not to stay in a job, to stay in this particular apartment or area that you lived in, or to move, relationships, to get fit, not to get fit. I'm sure there's been checkpoints in your life, like big decisions. Getting fit is a big decision, believe me, because so much changes afterwards. At least that's what I've experienced. And when you acknowledge that, it's like, well, I'm just going to come back to the knowing. Come back to the knowing. And if you're unsure, and you're a bit like, how do I trust the knowing and what have you, go back. I've got a couple of videos out there. One's like, how do I know? How do I trust my intuition? I think one of them's called, and the other is intuition's always right. Watch those two videos, very powerful. It'll help with what we're talking about here. But yeah, that's my message for today, guys. Like, come back to your knowing. Like, I look at so many of these, LeBron James, Michael Jordan figures, and there's so much proof that when they were in their knowing, major success came through. Like, here's another great book that I think you guys should read. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the Nike founder. Man, you want to talk about like checkpoints and major decisions that this bloke had to make. From how he built Tiger, you remember Tiger shoes and stuff, and then he developed Nike I think it was Asics, and then it was Nike, or Tiger became Asics under new. I can't remember exactly how it went, but all I remember reading that book back in 2019, it was a while ago. There were so many big decisions that he had to make with like so much pressure on his back. But a constant theme that he came back to was he came back to his knowing. There was a knowing, there was a gut instinct that he trusted. And it worked out. I mean, look at Nike, man. It's so huge. Read that book. That if you have to make big decisions right now and you're looking for a bit of inspiration from these kind of people, I'd highly recommend that you read Shoe Dog. Great read about the success of a massive conglomerate, a massive iconic company like Nike. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, ensure you hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. Give this video a like, share this video with someone that is also at that point, at that checkpoint in their life where they have to make a big decision. Share this video with them because, again, I believe if we can transcend the narratives, we can transcend the narratives out there, the narratives that we have about ourselves, and we can come back to the knowing. That's when we get on our path to power, the path to our true level of success. All right. Okay. You guys have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll chat next time.